I'm here at a weapons facility in the central city of Taichung to get a look at the country's next generation of military drones.
Taiwan begins decommissioning a nuclear power plant despite fears of electricity shortages. Inflation in Taiwan is going up, and real salaries are going down. Plus, rural southeastern Taiwan is working to ensure safe passage for the wildlife that roams its forests. A warm welcome to Taiwan Plus News. I'm Eric Gao. Starting off with local defense, Taiwan's top weapons maker, the Zhongshan Institute, is unveiling a series of military drones aimed at boosting the country's defense capabilities. Our reporter Jaime Ocon is in the central city of Taichung to get a closer look.
These drones are the newest additions to Taiwan's defense. The Zhongshan Institute of Science and Technology, the country's largest weapons maker, unveiled a new series of radar and combat drones designed for military use on Tuesday. Last month, the military announced that it would team up with the institute to upgrade existing civilian drones to a military standard and begin production. Officials say it's part of a growing trend around the world as many countries are looking to develop their own unmanned aerial systems.
我们可以看到，目前世界使用无人机相当成熟制造的国家，比如说土耳其，比如说以色列，甚至波兰等等，我们都可以看到它参加了世界上的一些区域冲突，还有各项战争。
Ukraine's success in using drones to push back the Russian invasion has shed light on how valuable this technology is. And now, Taiwan is looking to boost its own drone production. Officials here say that unmanned systems like these suicide drones are the future of warfare. This suicide drone is small enough to fit inside of a backpack and is one of the country's newest weapon systems. This drone in particular takes inspiration from the US-made Switchblade drone, known for its small size, portability, and ability to take out vehicles.
那当然最有名的还是美国的弹簧刀系列，因为依照美国的公开资料，这个弹簧刀大概生产了10万架，非常惊人的数字。那有很好的实战经验。
These drones are part of what experts call an asymmetric defense strategy. That means using lighter, more mobile weapons to destroy bigger, more expensive systems. Taiwan faces the threat of invasion from China, as Chinese warplanes and ships often operate around the country. This puts a strain on Taiwan's armed forces to respond. The production of these drones is all part of a push by the country to modernize its forces without putting any of its soldiers at risk. With mass production hoping to begin soon, the military hopes its new drone fleet will help be a key part of the country's defenses. Howard Zhang and Jaime Ocon in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
Meanwhile, Taiwan's defense minister says that the military will adjust its troop deployments after a soldier posted on the outlying Jinmen Islands swam to China. The soldier went missing last week. On Monday, the government confirmed that he was in Chinese territory. This has raised fears that the soldier could reveal troop locations and other sensitive information. But Taiwan's defense minister says the military regularly switches deployments to guard against information leaks. He also said authorities are waiting for the soldier to return before deciding what action to take.
不是因为我们管教方面把他给弄走，但我没有想断言，为什么？结论还要等他当面讲。
In international military news, the US, UK, and Australia say they will work together to build a new kind of nuclear submarine for the British and Australian navies. The three countries' leaders met in the US to announce the deal as part of their AUKUS partnership. Stash Butler has the story.
Sunny skies in San Diego as the US, the UK and Australia announce a milestone deal to give nuclear submarines to the land down under for the very first time.
Simply stated, we're putting ourselves in the strongest possible position to navigate the challenges of today and tomorrow together.
So what did they agree to? Under the new deal, Australia will begin sending military and civilian personnel to the UK and the US this year to learn how to operate nuclear submarines. At the beginning of the 2030s, the US plans to sell Australia 3 to 5 of its existing Virginia-class submarines, and then towards the end of the decade, the UK will finish building its first new AUKUS nuclear submarines, and Australia will do the same a few years later. All that will cost Australia about $200 billion over 3 decades.
The AUKUS agreement we confirm here in San Diego represents the biggest single investment in Australia's defence capability in all of our history.
The nuclear submarines Australia will get run off nuclear reactors, but they don't carry nuclear weapons. They don't need to come up for air so often, so they're stealthier than conventional subs, and they can travel much farther. To the head of the Australian Institute of International Affairs, the aim of the deal is clear.
So obviously this is about eroding Chinese claims to the region, which many, like the United States, like Australia, see as illegitimate.
Experts see AUKUS as a way of countering what the US and its allies see as belligerence from China. Beijing has been more and more willing to back its claims over the South China Sea with military force, and its ramped up activity around Taiwan, which it considers part of its territory. To the AUKUS leaders, that's part of a wider pattern.
Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, China's growing assertiveness, the destabilizing behavior of Iran and North Korea, all threaten to create a world defined by danger, disorder, and division.
But China says the deal will only mean more instability.
我们敦促美英澳三国倾听国际社会的呼声，切实履行核不扩散义务，撤销开展核潜艇合作的决定，以实际行动维护地区和世界的和平与安全。
Taiwan welcomed AUKUS when it was formed a year and a half ago as a way of keeping peace in the region. But foreign policy expert Bryce Wakefield sees it two ways.
One could argue that it actually helps to deter a Chinese invasion on Taiwan. On the flip side, one could argue that it's quite a provocative strategy and will be seen as such in Beijing.
Practical questions remain, things like whether Australia can build the expertise needed to operate the new subs and how it will pay for them. But to the leaders in San Diego, the goal of keeping peace in the Indo-Pacific more than justifies its cost and the long decades needed to achieve it. Klein Wang and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Back in Taiwan, the Coast Guard has banned a Chinese fishing boat from operating near the islands of Jingmen. The boat had entered Taiwanese waters without permission and is suspected of violating border regulations. Its crew was caught fishing and diving illegally around Jingmen's Wuqiu township. Jingmen sits only a few kilometers from China, but it belongs to Taiwan. The Coast Guard patrol checked the boat for illegal items and took the crew into custody. The County Council Speaker for Taiwan's offshore Penghu Island chain has been detained on charges of corruption. Liu Chen Zaoling is suspected of seriously violating anti-corruption laws. Prosecutors raided 19 locations on Monday, including Liu's office. They then took Liu and two other women into custody the next morning. Liu is a member of the Kuomintang, Taiwan's biggest opposition party. She has served 10 straight terms in office and has won the most re-elections for council speaker in Taiwan's history. If convicted, she could face 5 years behind bars. Taiwan is decommissioning the last generator at one of its nuclear power plants. This is part of the government's plan to phase out nuclear power by 2025, despite fears of looming electricity shortages. Louise Watt reports.
Taiwan's second nuclear power plant, which has been supplying the country with power for 40 years, is being decommissioned. But industry and experts are worried its shutdown will lead to power shortages.
非核家园政策底下，又没有新的配套措施出来，那是注定要缺电的。
Nuclear power has fallen to about 8% of Taiwan's energy mix. And this generator that is being closed provides around 3% of Taiwan's energy supply. With its decommissioning, one nuclear plant remains in operation. Recent power shortages in Taiwan have led to calls for the second plant's life to be extended, something the state power company says isn't going to happen.
就是法规规定的40年的时间到了，那我们就是这样子让它延役下，除役下来。
The ruling Democratic Progressive Party has long been against nuclear power and aims to phase it out by 2025. A big concern is where to store spent fuel.
新北市政府事实上不仅是核2，甚至核1厂，我们的核燃用过的这个核燃料呢，都还没有拿出来哈。那这个问题应该是说国人对这个问题还有很多的争议啦哈。
The government says there's no need to worry about power shortages, as natural gas generating units that will come online this summer will have installed capacity of 1,300 megawatts, which is more than the 985 megawatt capacity of the second nuclear plant. Taiwan is also developing wind and solar power, which currently provide 8% of its power, far off the government's target of 20% by 2025, when the country's final nuclear plant will also be laid to rest. Damon Lin and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
For more on Taiwan's nuclear decommissioning, Louise Watt spoke to Ye Zongguang, a professor at National Tsinghua University's Department of Engineering and System Science in Hsinchu.
How controversial is nuclear power in Taiwan?
Well, according to the public referendum held in 2018, the numbers showed about 40% of Taiwanese people are against nuclear power, but 60% of Taiwanese people are actually supporting nuclear power. So although there is no huge difference between the two sides, but when you talk about nuclear energy in Taiwan, some people will always say, oh, Taiwan is a very small island. We cannot afford any disaster happening at a nuclear power plant. But some other people would say that, well, Taiwan, it is a small island. That's why we need more stable electricity supply for this island.
Taiwan is shutting down the second nuclear power plant. How important was this plant for Taiwan's power supply?
We are now facing a very huge electricity shortage problem right now. And this power plant would actually provide 8 billion kilowatt hour electricity annually. So without new units coming up online at this time, shutting down this unit right now is very dangerous to Taiwan's electricity supply, especially Taiwan is in a tropical environment, and the temperature here will start to rise beginning in April. So when the weather gets warmer, the electricity consumption will definitely increase. Not to mention next year, there will be one more unit to be shut down next year. And then in 2025, another unit will be shut down. So we are basically facing more and more serious electricity shortage problem for the next 2 years.
That was Professor Ye Zongguang of National Tsinghua University speaking with TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt. Coming up, Taiwan's renewable energy ambitions are clashing with farmers. Stay tuned to find out why.
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. For more news from here in Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. In international news, Chinese leader Xi Jinping could soon hold a virtual meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. That's according to a report by the Wall Street Journal. Xi may speak with Zelensky after meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which is expected to take place in Moscow next week. It would be the first direct contact between the leaders of China and Ukraine since Russia invaded its neighbor over a year ago. The meeting would be part of recent international mediation efforts by China. The country has been working to further its image as a global heavyweight. Last week, Beijing helped broker an accord between Iran and Saudi Arabia. In China, the country is reopening its borders to foreign visitors for the first time since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Beijing will start issuing visas to international travelers starting Wednesday, removing the last of its COVID border restrictions. Mandatory quarantine for incoming travelers was dropped in January. The moves are set to help China's struggling tourism industry. In other world news, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in the United States sent global bank shares tumbling on Monday. SVB's collapse has triggered concerns that it could lead to an even wider banking meltdown. With pressure on other banks mounting, there's growing speculation that the U.S. Federal Reserve could push back its plans to raise interest rates. SVB's customers were able to access their funds on Monday after U.S. President Joe Biden promised full government protection for their deposits.
Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills.
Turning to Europe, Poland has many shelters housing Ukrainians escaping Russia's invasion, but few of them fly Taiwanese flags. Leslie Liao traveled to a small town outside Poland's capital to find out how one Taiwan-sponsored refuge is making a difference.
A Taiwanese, Polish, and Ukrainian flag hang in tandem outside of this building. It's a shelter called Ostojo Rodzina in Poland that houses Ukrainian people, funded in part by Taiwanese money. The founders of the shelter are Cindy and her partner Michael. When Russia invaded Ukraine, they rented out this building and started providing for Ukrainians escaping the war. The shelter has beds, living spaces, bathrooms, laundry areas, and even provides food for its residents. Right now, Ostoja is under renovation, so most of the dozen or so Ukrainians here live at another property nearby. Only 22-year-old Helena Avramchuk has stayed. She's an architecture student, so she has to put her knowledge to use looking after Ostoja's main building.
Я się zajmuję tym, że robię remont, maluję ściany, wymyślam sobie, jak to fajnie zrobić po designu, potem kładę linoleum, stylę podłogi, maluję sufity.
Helena's family is back in Ukraine, where her sister is working as a medic. She says pitching in at Ostoja is a way for her to give back during a difficult time.
Bo ponieważ odczuwam uczucie winy przez to, że jestem w Polsce, że jestem ubezpieczona i że wszyscy moi znajomi, moja rodzina zostałaś tam. I ja chcę coś robić, dlatego żeby być korzystna nadal swojemu kraju, nawet jako, że jestem poza swoim krajem.
For Helena, Taiwan is a source of reliable support for the shelter.
Nawet byliśmy z Tajwańczykiem takim, nie pamiętam jak ma na imię, ale byliśmy w sklepie, kupowali boilery, kupowali jeszcze coś takiego budowlanego dużo. No i że cały czas tu tak naprawdę pomaga tylko Tajwan.
Sophie Chiang provides Ostoja with a significant part of its Taiwanese funding. She has become a conduit for donations from Taiwanese people who want to help Ukrainians.
我就是收到大家的善款，然后我就想要怎么弄。
Sophie vets charitable causes and decides where to send the money.
我在赞助一个人，我建议问别人不相干的，我说这个人是不是可以信任。
And after giving money, Sophie will follow up with Ostoja to see where the funds have gone and what else might be needed. She'll then report back to donors about where their money has been spent and look for more sponsorships. Ostoja is in a small town 1 hour from Poland's capital and hundreds of kilometers from the Ukrainian border. But despite its size and distance, Ostoja is making a real difference to the Ukrainians it serves, giving people displaced by war a safe place to stay. And from even further away, Taiwan has helped make that possible, as shown by the flag hanging from the shelter's door. Leon Liam and Leslie Liao in Skierniewice, Poland for TaiwanPlus News.
Back in Taiwan, the country is experiencing inflation brought on by the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, leading to rising prices for things like eggs. But as consumer prices rise, real salaries in Taiwan have dropped. Bing Wang reports.
For the second straight month, the price of eggs has risen as Taiwan continues to face a shortage. Farms are now charging up to a 20% increase from last year. But it's not just egg prices that are soaring. The cost of housing and utilities, as well as other food products, are also increasing. The pandemic and the war in Ukraine have caused global inflation, which has led to an increase in production costs and reduction in purchasing power. And it's no different here in Taiwan. Inflation has caused the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, to rise. Now, CPI is a measure of price changes of goods and services paid for by buyers. Legislators are now saying that if the CPI is increasing, people need to be paid more.
CPI 成长就代表我们实质的薪水可能会缩水啊，不是吗？关键还是到薪水所得啊。
Lawmakers also pointed out that the cabinet froze salaries for 3 important sectors: public servants, public school teachers, and military personnel for 2023.
去年的军公教人员是没有调整薪水，今年要不要考虑调整？
The Government Statistics Bureau has said that in 2022, real salaries, those that are adjusted for inflation, experienced their biggest year-on-year drop in a decade. According to a local job bank, Taiwan's low salaries have forced workers to become dependents of other family members or take on second and third jobs. And with the rise in the cost of living and rent, many are falling behind on their payments, even with government subsidies.
社会的薪资结构是长期停滞的状态，即便是基本薪资调涨，感受上也不会太明显。3万元是一次性的请领，也就没有其他的补助了。那对于无壳蝸牛来说，更没有感觉了。因此呢，大家就开始想要找寻兼差的机会。
The Government Statistics Bureau said it will consider unfreezing salary increases for 2023. It will take into account consumer price trends and urge the government to intervene. The hope is that Taiwanese consumers will be able to afford eggs and other essential goods without feeling the strain. Patrick Chen and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Farm workers are once again clashing with renewable energy developers. Taiwan's efforts to cut its carbon emissions have sparked conflicts over land availability in central Taiwan. Sally Jensen reports.
Solar panels as far as the eye can see. This could become a common sight across the island as Taiwan works to achieve its climate goals. But with space at a premium, many farmers here in Jianghua see these panels as a possible threat to their way of life.
农委会将彰化大城乡339公顷的农地划为低地力的地区，去访问农民，他们都说这里种得非常好，排水很好，路又大，非常适合种植，还觉得怎么可能开放光电？
Disputes like this are becoming commonplace as Taiwan works towards achieving net zero carbon emissions. In January, the country passed a new climate bill that commits to reducing its planet-warming emissions by 2050. That means increasing its share of renewable energy sources like solar and wind power. At the end of last year, Taiwan's solar power was at 9.7 gigawatts installed capacity. The net zero plan has this increasing to 20 gigawatts by 2025. That's more than double in the space of 3 years. But for an island around the size of the Netherlands, the question of where all these installations will be built has already led to conflicts with farming communities. The government is assuring farmers that the land they rent is not up for grabs.
获得目的事业主管机关许可之前呢，这些光电业者其实他没有实质的这个土地的使用的一个同意，土地的承租人他没有出具这个放弃的一个同意的文件的话呢，不用担心说这个业者他会取得这个光电开发的这个使用的一个权利。
But environmental groups are not convinced. They're concerned that the money landowners can earn from renting to renewable energy companies would be much higher than what they charge farmers.
那假设地主就是不愿意再继续跟他合作，我就是要租给光电，那这些农民要怎么办？
The government says that in line with the new climate law, ecologically and agriculturally valuable land will not be sacrificed for renewable energy installations. But as the pace towards a green future quickens, many farmers across Taiwan are becoming worried they might be the ones who are left behind. Howard Zhang and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Forest trails in Taiwan regularly undergo maintenance to keep them safe for visitors. But this work often endangers the animals that live there. Forestry officials in eastern Taiwan are working to change that, creating customized safe trails for animals. Yvonne Yang has this report.
Muntjacs, macaques, crab-eating mongooses, and even sandbars. These are just some of the wild animals that climb up and down these specially made passageways in eastern Taiwan's Zhiben National Forest Recreation Area. These routes are designed to allow animals to move around the forest safely, especially if there are construction projects in the area. The passages are a valuable addition in helping ensure the safety of local wildlife. There are 6 forest roads under the jurisdiction of the Taidong Forestry Bureau. They were built to allow rescue teams into the area. The roads are often in need of upkeep, but environmental groups say this maintenance work can sometimes threaten the safety of animals that live there.
那因为早期在做工程的时候都没有这样子的想法，所以都会造成动物可能不小心进入，然后就跑不出来。
Since 2015, the Taiwan Forestry Bureau has conducted reviews of its facilities and built passages specifically for the local wildlife.
设施方面，像集水井或者是说动物通道，如果去加强它的一个设施的改善，让这些动物能够在山林之间自由的穿梭。
Since introducing the reviews, the number of animal deaths from maintenance projects has decreased significantly. The Taiwan Forestry Bureau now hopes to expand these animal-friendly trails to other forest areas, helping ensure that the country's wildlife stays safe. Andy Xue, Sandy Chi, and Yvonne Yang for TaiwanPlus.
In other animal news, a rare sunfish has been spotted in waters off the coast of southern Taiwan. A diving instructor saw the hoodwinker sunfish near the popular tourist spot of Kending on Monday. The hoodwinker sunfish was only recognized as a distinct species in 2017. They live in the southern hemisphere and are rarely seen north of the equator. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. Remember to download the Taiwan Plus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, enjoy these shots of pachyderms celebrating National Elephant Day in Thailand with a feast of fruits and vegetables. I'm Eric Gao. Take care and see you next time.